What is up, and welcome to the Red and Bold Show. We're excited to have you here on a Sunday afternoon. The 49ers are off today, but here we are. Just like we did, we talked on Monday, or no,
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yeah. My days are running together, but we talked Wednesday morning early, and that was the 49ers day off. So we work when the 49ers work. We work when the 49ers don't work. But we're not paid the millions. How's it going, Ant?
It's going great. Yeah, we're double dipping this week, and it's a lot of fun. Right now is just such a fun time, and it's interesting that I get emails. And I just had one come from Patreon from Lou, and it's interesting because what he was asking about Alfred Collins, you are also putting out there, and talking about with me and putting it that we're going to talk about in this episode. I think there's a lot of things out there right now, and the 49ers have so many question marks. We have some of the injuries that are going on. And then all the while, I'm looking at this, and they just completed block 3 of training camp. And right around the corner is not just preseason, but joint practice with the Denver Broncos on Thursday. This is a great time to find out who the 49ers are going to be. Robert Saleh talked about, hey, it's time to kind of play somebody else. And so I think this is a good time for the 49ers to kind of step up. We can kind of see who they are. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. Now, that is Thursday. Are they doing it Friday as well, or is it just Thursday?
I think it's just Thursday. They're taking Friday off, and then they're having the Saturday preseason game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So thanks for everybody that's already in the chat. By the way, you can follow me at 49ers Camelot. You can follow Ant at 49ers Cutback. He's also on X by a different name. Does that ever confuse people?
No, I mean, for the most part, people seem to be able to find me. Yeah. But yeah, I'm on the X as well, and you can find me there. I post occasionally. I need to be more, I guess, consistent with my posting. But for whatever reason, I'm still at the age to where social media is not my first go-to in nature. There's a lot of people that do social media a little bit better than I do. I'm hoping to get better at it during the season. We'll see if I can pull it off.
Well, you're missing out. If you don't post on X, then you miss some of the hatred and that is spewed our way on occasion. Not necessarily me and you, but yeah, once I first started writing for 49ers Web Zone back in, what was that, 2021, I quickly found out, man, there's some mean people out there. But I tell you what, the meanest ones are on Facebook, because 49ers Web Zone is on X and on Facebook. And so occasionally I'll go on there because I do a weekly mailbag during the season. Actually, I probably need to do one this next week. And man, it's different. On Facebook, they're meaner than they are on X, which is crazy. So thanks everybody for joining us here in the chat, and those that are listening or watching. We really appreciate it. So let's jump in and talk some 49ers football, because I know that you're not here just to hear us ramble about stuff that you don't care about. Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall are making noise, man. It sounds like Purdy has been really good lately, and it sounds like Ricky Pearsall had his best practice here. I don't know if that was Friday or if that was Thursday, but man, it sounds like those two are really hooking up a lot.
Yeah, it was actually yesterday. Ricky Pearsall had his best practice thus far. And, it makes sense. He's just ramping up, right? He's kind of getting into form, rounding into form, and they're kind of easing him in. They gave him that rest day after he worked a couple of days of practice. They've been very smart with making sure Ricky Pearsall is going to be ready. But I think Ricky Pearsall is now showing that he's picking up where he left off at the end of last season, where him and Brock Purdy started building a real rapport, and they were able to get what they wanted out of each single route that they were running. And you could see it. The timing was more on. Ricky was able to catch the ball, and make plays. And so I think that's what you're going to see continuing. And it was Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing who were the ones who worked with Brock Purdy the most during the offseason. Of course, Kittle got some work as well now that they live in Tennessee together. But I think that you see this right now from Pearsall is that you're going to see him continue to elevate. And I think we're going to see a first-round draft pick. I think people have seen the potential, but now we're going to see that guy come to light and really fire up and make some plays. He is a good wide receiver for Brock Purdy because it's all based on timing and good route running, and that's something Ricky Pearsall does very well.
Yeah, I really think that if he stays healthy, then he's going to be a legit number one wide receiver eventually. I I don't know if I'm going to say he's going to be better than Brandon Ayuk has ever been, but I think that he has that potential for sure. Ayuk, when he's healthy and when he's right, he's very good. He's Pro Bowl caliber. I think that Ricky Pearsall has that potential as well. So if he can stay healthy, if Ayuk can come back and return somewhat to that 2023 form, which I don't think is going to happen this year, but let's say in 2026, Ayuk is healthy, Pearsall's healthy. Those two have a chance to be a better combination than Ayuk and Debo. Now, Debo is used differently. I get that, and so I'm not saying that Pearsall can be more dynamic than Debo was, but I think that those two have the potential to be a better pure receiving combination than Ayuk and Debo Samuel.
Yeah, you said it very correct at the end. The better wide receiver duo. You can't be a better playmaking duo without Debo Samuel. But as
Yeah.
far as the intricacies of the route running, getting open, the natural pass catching, those are things that Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk excel at. And I'm looking forward to seeing Ricky Pearsall this year really create separation at times where it's not just Kyle Shanahan scheming it up, but also him winning some of these one-on-one routes. And he makes contested catches. He's not a guy who fears going over the middle. You've got the perfect X and Z combination with Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall moving forward. And you've still got some of those playmaking abilities with George Kittle, with Christian McCaffrey. You don't have to have a Debo player in this system at wide receiver when you have guys kind of in other spots. So it's going to be a fun development for the 49ers where they're going back to a little bit of Kyle Shanahan's past, where they're getting those receivers that kind of create down the field a little bit more. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what it looks like. We know we're going to miss the Debo elements, but it's going to be a lot of fun to seeing the other elements that can be opened up in Kyle Shanahan's offense that really he hasn't been able to run every year because of limitations to certain players. They excel in certain areas. They're limited in certain areas. You got to highlight their strengths and sort of negate their weaknesses. And that's what he's going to do just in a different way because of how the wide receivers are built now.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, some not great news from late this week that I think came down yesterday. Kyle Juszczyk left the field with an injury. Isaac Guerendo left the field with a shoulder injury. So again, that offensive backfield's taken some hits. We've already seen too much, and they're easing Christian McCaffrey back in, which I think is smart. Jordan James, of course, has been out with a knee injury, and now here's Isaac Guerendo and Kyle Juszczyk. We really don't know much at this point where they're at on these injuries. Hopefully, they bounce back soon, because especially with Guerendo, I just think that they're going to really need him this year, and I hate to see him miss time. Now last year he missed a lot of time, but he came right out of the gate. He made his presence known. So hopefully he can continue to do that. But he's had some injury issues so far.
Yeah, and really, there hasn't been very many injuries to his upper half. This is a shoulder injury. They said it happened during a special teams drill. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully, it's nothing serious. We do know that sometimes you can get a bone bruise. Those things hurt a lot. It's smart to kind of keep him out. It could be a stinger. We've seen several players deal with that. Those are both things that I've dealt with when I played football. So it's not fun. The good news is, right, he didn't leave the field. Whenever you leave the field, that's when it's a little bit more nerve-wracking. Kyle Juszczyk leaving during warmups. I don't know if that's a hamstring, what that's going to be. I think that one's a little bit more nerve-wracking for the fact that we don't want, Kyle Juszczyk out when the season starts. We're going to need him early on, especially with the question marks about wide receiver. They need to run 21 personnel, and they need him out on the field. But as long as it happens now, there's a chance he'll be ready week one, even if it's a hamstring. So the timing is still good. They've got plenty of tight ends that could fill in that fullback. But you're right. Right now, running back has been stacking injuries. Jordan James, Isaac Guerendo, they had already signed Amir Abdullah to come in and get some more reps. If these guys are going to be out. If you're going to have Grendo out for even a little bit of time, they're going to have to go sign another running back because you need those reps, especially with joint practices and with preseason. So it's getting sketchy. You like when the injuries are spread amongst several positions and not stacking at certain ones. So it's going to make it more complicated for the 49ers. But I think they're up to the task right now. And let's see how they continue to manage it, because they have had to have luxury guys like an extra kicker on their 90-man roster because they have a competition going. You don't normally have that. So that's another element to this as your roster building.
Yeah, that's a good point. And interestingly, well, I don't know if it's interesting. It's not really a positive thing. They're razor thin at wide receiver. They're becoming thinner at running back. And now Jauan Jennings is missing. I don't know. Remember in the late 80s and early 90s, some of our people that are watching or listening are gonna now realize that you and I are old. But remember back then there was this show called Unsolved Mysteries, and it had this freaky intro with this guy named Robert Stack, I think was his name, and he had this voice that just could keep you up at night. And so I think that there needs to be an Unsolved Mysteries episode with that little jingle playing. Ask, where's Jauan Jennings? He had a calf injury, I believe was what they said. But by all accounts, he hasn't been at practice. So is this a real injury, or is he now holding out? What's going on with Jauan Jennings?
Yeah, I think it's a real injury. He was dealing with this during OTAs. They had talked about the fact he was working on the side field. He wasn't getting a lot of work in minicamp. And I think that Jauan, with a calf injury is being careful. We know that calf injuries can turn into more, right? If it's a strain, it can turn into a pull. A calf injury can also affect the Achilles. So being diligent and making sure that you rest now is something important. Now, it probably won't be noticed, but luckily for me, I get notified about like my memories on my phone. And I just look back, and Jauan Jennings was missing training camp practices last year at this time, dealing with different injuries. And I had pictures and videos of him working on a side field. So it's kind of been common for Jauan to miss a little bit of time in training camp. And last year, all the spotlight was on Brandon Ayuk and his hold in. So no one was really worried about Jauan Jennings last year missing practice. But
true.
Now it's kind of a thing. So I think it's smart to hold him out. And I think that's what's going on right now. He's trying to work his way back. At some point, you're going to want him back, but you don't have to have him for the preseason. As long as you have guys that can go out there and get snaps, it's not like him and Brock Purdy need to build a rapport. They have good chemistry together. As long as he's healthy and ready to go for week 1 at Seattle, that's what's important, especially with a lot of the key veterans. It's the younger guys you don't want to miss. You want them out there getting those reps so that way they can build a rapport with their teammates, and that way they're locked and loaded and ready to go.
Yeah. I don't concern myself too much with Jauan Jennings. I think that he's going to be fine. Just like what Rob just wrote, Rob D here in the chat. JJ will be fine. He just needs to rub it in with a contract extension. Miracle cure. Yeah, maybe it is contract related. I don't know. It just, the thing that's weird is that he's not been at practice working on the sidelines, because that's normally what you see. So that's the only reason why I wonder, is this a real thing? But we'll soon find out. All right, Robert Saleh said that cornerback 3 and both safety positions are still up for grabs. How do you see this playing out? Because this, especially at corner, is another kind of razor thin area of the 49ers. I feel like I'm not worried about their starters, really. I'm worried about the backup offensive tackles. I'm worried about the somewhat thin nature of the running back room, although I'm really not that concerned. The wide receiver room worries me. The cornerback room worries me, in addition to that offensive line. But how do you see this with the safeties? We assume that Jair Brown was going to be one of the starters, but if it's a competition, then maybe he doesn't. Well, I think he probably still wins that competition, at least until Mustafa's back. How do you see the safety position working out? And how do you see that third corner? So if we have two healthy corners on the outside, is it going to be Upton Stout in the at the nickel, or could Lenore go to the nickel and somebody else be on the outside opposite Renardo Green? How do you see that working out at this point, realizing that a lot can change between now and early September?
Yeah, and I think right now you're getting an opportunity for some of these cornerbacks to step up. Renardo Green has been out, and he's going to come back in a couple of weeks, is the timeline right now. So you've had Trey Brown being able to play outside and inside. You've had Dallas Flowers getting first team snaps as well. And I think that that's important to kind of figure out who's in the mix. And I think there's three cornerbacks in the mix for that third corner spot. Upton Stout, for sure. Now he's a nickel only. So if he wins the job, De'Amara Lenore and Renardo Green are going to stay on the outside. Lenore won't slide inside. I think that Upton Stout has got a chance to get this thing done. I think he's got a chance to win this spot, but he's going to have to play extremely well to beat out Trey Brown and Dallas Flowers, who have both had a pretty good training camp so far. Like you said, a lot is going to be figured out over the next few weeks when the 49ers go through their preseason games and their joint practices, because that's when you're going to see how they respond to offenses that are different schemes, different route concepts. How do these guys handle playing in zone, playing in man coverage against different personnel and different coaching staffs? I think that's going to be a big way to figure out who exactly wins this job. I think right now, Trey Brown, to me, is still the first guy in. He's got the versatility to play inside and out. And I think he's had a pretty good training camp overall. So I think he'll get the first crack at it. And they'll be willing, no matter, depending on where he's the most comfortable, to move De'Amara Lenore inside on nickel situations. It's not dead set that he's going to stay outside. So if Trey Brown feels more comfortable on the outside where he played at Seattle, that could be important. And, a big conversation point has been the first week of the season's against the Seattle Seahawks. Jackson Smith and Jigba playing in the slot. We've got to make sure that we have a nickel corner that can handle Jackson Smith and Jigba. Is it too much for Upton Stout? That's going to be the key. And then after that, it comes down to what's better. Trey Brown playing on the inside at nickel, or Trey Brown or Dallas Flowers playing on the outside with Lenore going inside. I think it's still to be determined, but I'm very excited about the situation. When it comes to safety, I think Jason Pennick is still the leader in the clubhouse to start at safety. And I think Jair Brown, like you alluded to, is still ahead of Richie Grant. But I think it's entirely smart for Robert Saleh to say, this thing is still up for grabs. Number one, it keeps Richie Grant engaged. It makes him want to go out there and work harder. It keeps Jair Brown from thinking he's got this spot locked up, and now he's got to go give maximum effort. And why not allow Marcus Siegel to believe he has an opportunity to play as well? If you're not dead set, you don't have guys who are incumbents, let's go make them all prove that they could be the best guy, and the best man wins. It doesn't matter about anything. Where you're drafted, if you're a free agent, if I like you, it doesn't matter. If you're the best player, you're going to play. And I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, and Papa J in the chat asked, how about Jacob Robinson? Do you think it's just going to be too steep of a climb for him to get much playing time as a rookie?
I think with Jacob Robinson, with Derek Canteen, these guys that are trying to make headway at the cornerback position, there's going to be opportunity, because it's likely that Renardo Green's not playing against the Raiders. He's definitely not playing against the Broncos, which means they're going to get some more reps. And with that comes opportunity. If Jacob Robinson does what he's been doing at practice, he's going to have a chance to sneak up in there and have an opportunity to make this team. But even then, I think it's going to be more so on the back end of the depth chart for the cornerback position. I don't think he's in the mix to be a starter or a key contributor early, but I think that he's in the mix. I mean, just everything I've seen from him at training camp, he's a guy competing. He's a guy going out there and making plays, and he's kind of getting on everyone's radar. And it's not that much different than what a Quantrez Knight did, a couple years ago, where he was kind of playing really well. The only difference is Jacob Robinson has more key skills like athletic ability, a better natural feel than Quantrez Knight. He's just less physical. So he's an interesting guy. I think if he could prove it over the next couple of weeks, he might have an opportunity to make this team, but I don't think he has an opportunity to start.
Yeah, right. Okay, so speaking of rookies, Kyle Shanahan usually is not I don't know. He's reluctant to play rookies if it's a close competition. between a rookie and a veteran, especially rookie wide receivers. I mean, we saw last year. Now Ricky Pearsall was shot August 31st or something like that, and so he had to have time to recover from that. But I don't know how much time he would have got to on the field right off the bat anyway, because I think that Kyle's just slow with playing rookie wide receiver. So with that being said, can Jordan Watkins be the exception and make a big impact as a rookie?
I don't know about big impact. I do think he's going to have an opportunity to make a impact. Kyle Shanahan is real good about giving rookies an opportunity to get something done, right? If you go back and you watch Deebo Samuel, he had opportunities to carry the football out of the back, and in reverses and things like that his rookie season. And he kind of integrated himself as the season went on and made some plays. So Deebo did have an impact as a rookie, but he's got a little bit more skill set than Jordan Watkins when it comes to other areas of the game that can be incorporated into the offense. But when you look at Brandon Ayuk, Kyle did some quick screens. He ran some reverses. He got him the ball in space, and he found ways to get Brandon Ayuk involved in the offense. And I think he's going to do this with Jordan Watkins. I've seen them run a reverse at practice to Jordan Watkins. I think that's one element they could use. But one thing that Watkins has that Ayuk and Deebo didn't have is the ability to go vertical down the field. And having that ability to stretch the field vertically is going to be a key element to the 49ers offense and creating opportunities for George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey over the middle of the field, or even Demarcus Robinson and Ricky Pearsall and Jauan Jennings. So I think because he has that speed element, he's going to get more opportunities. I also believe as long as he can handle the mental elements of the game, know where to line up, know when to go in motion, know what to do, Kyle will be willing to play him. But he's going to have to earn Brock Purdy's confidence. He's going to have to earn Kyle Shanahan's confidence before he's going to have those chances. So 1 or 2 catches a game, maybe 1 or 2 targets a game for him early on in the season. If he does well with those opportunities, there will be more lined up for him. If not, well, we know what Kyle Shanahan will do. He'll start counting on his veterans again, Russell Gage, Isaiah Hodgins, and he will count on guys he knows what he can get from them. The other thing that could also be a little bit of a problem for Jordan Watkins is if Jacob Cowing comes back and starts really stepping in and proving that he can be a key element to this offense as well. That might move Watkins down the depth chart just a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to see Jacob Cowing come back and do something. I want to get to this comment from NY Niners, New York Niners. I guess that's what that's supposed to be for. Feeling like Valdez, talking about Sebastian Valdez, will be this year's Marcus Rush. Remember him, the Chip Kelly year from hell. That was the second of 2 bad years in a row. And so I was going to. This is a great segue here to that. I keep hearing really good things about Sebastian Valdez. Now, what have you seen? What have you heard? I did hear that Robert Saleh said something to the effect of, "Hey, slow, let's put the brakes to this. We need to see him against better competition," or something along those lines. But what about Sebastian Valdez? Could this be a guy who makes an impact, undrafted? So his chances aren't great. But so far, it sounds like he's making the most of his opportunities.
Yeah, I think he looks pretty good so far. I think that there are still some things that he's working on. I seen Chris Cassera getting on him the same way he was getting on Alfred Collins and CJ West and those guys. You can definitely tell there's things he's learning. But, I mean, he's big, strong, and fast. And whenever you are big, strong, and fast at the defensive line position and you kind of have your feet underneath you and a balance to you, you're going to have an opportunity. I've seen some good things from him. I thought he did stand out when, I've been at training camp. I thought he's done a very good job of going through the drills. One-on-ones, he's done okay. 11-on-11s, he's competed and done a pretty good job. I think he's in the mix. The question is, who doesn't make the team so Valdez can make the team? Because who else has been stepping up over the last few days has been Kalia Davis. Kalia Davis has had some really good reps in one-on-ones. He's been winning. He's been getting some push, and he's a little bit more experienced. And I think that's one of the question marks as these guys are moving up. And we're talking about some of these guys being in the mix. It also means that it puts other guys in danger, right? Kevin Givens, who's a 3 tech, would he be in danger of not making this team? One that always makes everyone cringe when I say it, but Evan Anderson, who doesn't really pass rush. Do we have a redundancy there? If you have CJ West and Alfred Collins already, what does that mean for Evan Anderson? So it's an interesting dynamic with Valdez, and I do think that he's got a lot of potential, but is it ready to be exploited now, or is it a down the line thing where they can put him on the practice squad and work with him and develop him for later? I think it might be a down the road, but I'm open to the thought process of let's see what happens at preseason games. And if he shows up and shows out, well, then he might just jump right over the top of some of those guys ahead of him. And I have no problems with that. If he wants to beat out Kevin Givens and take that role, I'm all for it because he's bigger and he's better against the run than Kevin Givens. But that's a 5-year vet that he's got to take a spot from. You want that to happen, but it's a tough job.
Yeah, I saw that somebody was talking about how they have been running a little bit of like a 5-man defensive line where they had a couple of guys on the edge and then they had 3 defensive tackles. And so that might be interesting to see if some of those rookies can be in there or just, I don't know if this is something that they're looking at to stop, from getting shredded in the run game. But that would be interesting to see. You mentioned Alfred Collins, and I don't know if you saw what Matt Barrows said. He was on the 49ers plus minus, I think that's what it's called, with Tim Kawakami. And this is what he said, because Kawakami asked him about the 3 rookies, Williams, Collins, and West. And this is what Barrows said. Alfred Collins not only was a 2nd-round pick, he was a high 2nd-round pick, and he's behind Michael Williams and CJ West. He's even behind Sebastian Valdez, who's an undrafted guy. He's behind and looks behind due to missing minicamp. I think that he's got a tendency to, once he gets stymied, he just stops going or stops going as hard as he can. Now, I didn't like hearing that part, but later he talked about how Collins is where he's at right now is where these other guys were back in the spring. And so that he just looks like he's really out of shape, which I think could explain why he's behind, because he wasn't available because of a calf injury in the offseason program. So now he's having to play catch up, and he's not quite as fit as he should be. And so because of that, he's losing reps, because when he gets kind of, as Matt used the word stymied, he kind of just quits because he's just worn out. Is that, I know that you were really high on Alfred Collins. So is this just, look, he needs to get in shape. He's just not there yet. Give him time. He'll be fine. Or is this something that you might be concerned about?
I think that for me, it's more about the scheme. Alfred Collins didn't play this penetrating scheme at Texas. His job was, if he got stymied like that, to anchor and hold your ground. He was a 2-gapper. So his job was to eat space. And now he's coming into a system where he's not asked to just eat space, but to get into the backfield, to penetrate, and to make something happen. So he's having to retrain himself to play in a different scheme. And so when that happens, a lot of times you've built a certain way of going about things. You have to work really hard to get things done. So one thing that I have noticed, because I went to training camp every single day when I could to watch like guys like Jauan Jennings and those guys at practice. And one thing I saw from Jauan Jennings was the fact that he used to have to hit the bag low every single day because it was all about pad level. And he really didn't graduate out of that all through training camp from what I saw. Even the next year in 2021, it was the same thing. He had to do the same thing. Alfred Collins is already graduating out of that. So there are development elements to Alfred Collins he's getting better at. But to say that he's, it's because he's just tired, I think there is an element to tired. I really do, because he is getting himself into football shape. But I think it's more than that. I think a lot of it has to do with the scheme and him adjusting to the 49ers scheme. And once he figures it out, then it's going to be a little bit easier for him. But he is behind a guy like CJ West, who is definitely ahead in how he handles the scheme right now. But what's going to happen when it unlocks? How quickly will he jump from here to there? That's the big question. Because sometimes once you get that aha moment and your body figures it out, you jump way ahead. And I think that's what they're hoping is going to happen. But right now it is development. I said earlier in the week, we just got to let him breathe. We got to let him have an opportunity to get better. And at some point, it's going to be figured out. And then Alfred Collins is going to make a play. But to ask Alfred Collins to be a world beater, to be a Mikael Williams, as far as when it comes to pass rush, that's not going to happen. But I think if we're talking about early down, stopping the run consistently, I think Alfred Collins could still be a big beast. But let's see where he's at 2 weeks from now. I think that's going to be one of the key elements to this, is how quickly he's going to develop.
Yeah, that's very well said. All right, the last thing that I have for you, and then I'll try and get to a couple of questions here in the chat, is that you are always, everybody who listens to you knows that you're always more optimistic. So you tend to lean more toward that way. There's some, people make fun of a certain beat writer who's just always like way overboard optimistic. And then there's the contrast of the other one that's always pessimistic. You tend to be more optimistic, but I think, in a realistic way. So give me a couple of things that you're maybe not pessimistic about, but a couple of things that you are concerned about that you'd have to kind of get away from your normal optimistic way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think the safety. I think safety position. I'm not optimistic about it right now. I think that it's going to have to develop a lot. I that is one place that I'm looking at the position. I'm saying, okay, we have talent, but are they going to be able to play together? Are they going to be able to succeed enough? Because we can't protect safeties all the time, and we've seen Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans be able to protect safeties at times that maybe were good at certain areas, but not others. And so we need this defense to be multiple in their looks and be able to tackle in key situations. So that is one place where I'm a little bit nervous. And I would say that I look at the position, I say, okay, we've got a lot of development. If we had Malik Mustafa right now and Marquis Siegel was going into year 2, I would have a completely different outlook on this. We got to count on Jason Pennick and either Jair Brown or Richie Grant to develop with Malik out. If we were looking for one spot, I would be highly optimistic as well, but we're looking for 2 spots and 2 guys to hit. And the best we got are journeymen, right? Pennick, Richie Grant, those are journeymen. Jair, such a bad year, he knew, but that would be one place that I'm definitely a little bit concerned and probably not as optimistic as I could be, even though I could see some of the talent of those guys. And I know that if they get coached up, they can be successful. Now, for the second one, I've been kind of leading on this the whole time, is it's got to be tight end position. I am concerned about tight end if George Kittle gets hurt for any stretch of time. I know Luke Farrell can come in and handle the blocking, but he will be very ineffective when it comes to pass catching. This is, a guy that's not a better pass catcher than a guy like Eric Saubert or a Tyler Kroft. He's not. He's got ability when it comes to blocking, but I worry about Braden Willis and Jake Tungis and Mason Pline and those guys being able to go in there and compete and be successful when George Kittle misses 1 or 2 games. So I think that's another place where I'm probably the most pessimistic, but it's been a consistent concern for me for the last 5 to 7 years with this 49ers team that they just haven't had that guy. And every single time George Kittle's out, we've had maybe like 1 year where Ross Dwelley did really well in 2019 in his limited snaps that he filled in. Other than that, it has just been a struggle at the tight end position. So that's another one I'm still kind of like up in the air about.
All right. And those weren't the 2 that I thought that you would go with, but they both make a lot of sense. One thing I want to point out is several weeks ago, I don't remember when this was, but several weeks ago, I asked you about, can Spencer Burford become that replacement for Trent Williams or something like that? And you were pretty adamant that no, he doesn't have the feet for it. And I've heard a lot of people praising Spencer Burford but I'm starting to hear people say, I don't think he has it. I don't think he has the feet. And so I just wanted to give you the credit for saying that before I heard anybody else saying it. So hopefully Trent Williams, please don't get hurt. That's what we're saying here. George Kittle, please don't get hurt. All right, let me get to a couple of questions here from Ronnie Montoya. Do you think they should play any of the vets during the preseason?
I think some of
Go
them,
ahead,
yeah,
yeah.
right, Mark? I mean, I think they've got to play some. I mean,
Yeah, they don't have a choice for sure.
right. So I think that for the most part, right, you don't need to play Trent Williams. There's no reason to play Trent. Maybe you play him one series. Other than that, you don't have to play him. George Kittle, play him a series, call it a day. Christian McCaffrey should never step on the field. Other than that, you probably need your offensive line other than Trent to go out there and get a little bit of chemistry playing together. Defensive line, it'll have to be key veterans. Bosa, one series, get him out, never see him again. I think that, yeah, there's key positions you don't have to, especially with depth along the defensive line. You have plenty of guys that are going out there and competing. So I hope we don't see very much Fred or Nick or, these guys that are going to be out there. I think you have to play some, but you're going to rest as many as you can.
Yeah, Trent Williams, don't need to see him. You mentioned McCaffrey, Kittle, Warner, Demo. Don't need to see those guys. I don't really even need to see Jauan Jennings. But, it's weird because the Rams have taken this approach where they, at least in previous years, have not played their starters, or they've played them very, very little, like much less than regular teams do. And in one year, it seemed to pay off for them. Now, in contrast, you go back to the old school 49ers. They played in the preseason. They were in midseason form in the preseason, and they started quick almost every year. And so I don't know. It just seems different these days. I don't want to say players aren't tougher because that's probably not the case. I think they just practice differently. And so they're not, their bodies aren't used to what they went through back then. And probably they have less time off than they used to have years ago. So I don't know. I kind of am with you. I get some of them in there for a series or something like that, or a few plays, but yeah, I don't want to see my starters, like my key starters, like Warner and Bosa and Trent Williams, McCaffrey, those guys, Kittle. I don't want to see them very much. Brock Purdy, don't want to see. I don't want to see those guys very much in the preseason. Let's see. Marvin Rose says, because Collins is a high second-round pick, will Kyle cut him if he cannot do what is expected? This season, no way. Next season, no. I mean, they gave Javon Kinlaw, they gave him what? How many seasons did they give him? Like 3, 4, something like that.
He was with the team for 4 years.
Yeah, so they gave him multiple chances, and he was a first rounder. But I think that Collins, he's a high second rounder, so I think they're going to give him ample opportunity. I mean, look at Jake Moody; he's going into his 3rd season, and he still has a shot. So they're not going to cut him anytime soon.
No, I think it would be a detriment to the team if they cut him anytime soon. Alfred Collins is a guy that once he develops, he's got the potential to be an absolute monster. And I bet you if you ask the defensive coaching staff if they felt like it was going to take Alfred Collins a little bit to adjust to the new scheme, they would say yes. I wonder if you got them in a closed room and asked them if they would give you a straight answer, if they could, if they would probably tell you this is probably where they expected him to be and not, further along, because it is a development process and you're having to retrain all these techniques and it's not easy. This was always a thing when I was coaching was you get someone that comes in from a different program and you have to retrain them in how you do things. And it's an adjustment period. Some guys pick it up extremely quickly. Some guys don't. But once they do pick it up, As long as they got the physical skills, they can dominate. And Alfred Collins definitely has the physical skills to dominate in this league. And I believe once he gets it figured out, he is going to be a problem. And he has more athleticism than Jauan Kinlaw, and he rushes lower than Jauan Kinlaw. There's a lot of elements to his game that are better than Kinlaw. So I'm a fan of him overall. I think that he can be a real problem.
Next from NY Niners for Ant, I guess I'm not allowed to answer this one. What have you seen? And that's fine, because I wouldn't really have an answer for this anyway. What have you seen from Connor Colby? I've got a vested interest beyond my fandom.
I like Connor Colby. I think from what I've seen so far, there are elements to his game that I thought he was better in than I anticipated. I think he's holding up better than I thought he was going to coming into camp. I still think that there's things he needs to work on. I still worry about his anchor in pass protection. That's one thing that has concerned me, and I've seen him get walked back a little bit. And so I know he needs to get better at that. He's still developing. He's a young guy. I just wonder how close he's going to get to making this roster. I think barring injury, it's going to be hard, but I do think they like him enough that he's got a shot. And right now he's a guard-only prospect. Is that going to end up hurting him in the long run? That's one thing I'm interested in. But I do believe he's further along right now than I anticipated him being, and that's a good sign. That means he's got a chance to make this 53-man roster, which, a couple weeks ago I would have said I didn't think so. So that's a good news for Connor Colby. He's definitely a better player than I anticipated him being.
Keys asked, is Watkins the real deal? He's getting a lot of praise so far. Yeah, we discussed Watkins earlier in the show. Notorious GAV asked, any update on the Juszczyk heel injury? No, I haven't heard anything. Have you?
No, I haven't. I haven't heard anything about Juszczyk's injury. Kyle Shanahan should speak to the media tomorrow, so that's probably our first chance to get a real update on Kyle Juszczyk, and we'll see what happens. I mean, one thing I know about Juszczyk, if he's capable, he's going to end up being out there, but it's very important for the 49ers to protect him for the regular season. So expect Kyle Juszczyk to probably miss some time, and this is where Ross Dwelley and Braden Willis and Jake Tunges get an opportunity to show their versatility. Tunges has played fullback for the Chicago Bears. Ross Dwelley did it in 2019, and Braden Willis has done it, through the last couple of years at practice. So that's why you have these guys. They can play the fullback role while Kyle Juszczyk mends.
James Barber asks about Bryce Huff. Everything that I've heard has been really good, that he just looks awesome. What did you see when you've been there?
Yeah, I put up a short of Bryce Huff going through drills, and he's quicker than a hiccup. I mean, the guy is faster than all the other defensive linemen, and it's not close. There's just a change of direction element with him. He's the real speed rush element for the 49ers. He flattens out. He's really good. He's going to be impressive. And if you are planning on double teaming Nick Bosa this year, and you are going to single up Bryce Huff, good luck. And this might be a year for the 49ers to put Nick Bosa on some left tackles and allow Bryce Huff to work on some right tackles where he's going to be able to win with speed. And I think the 49ers NASCAR package could be a real problem with Bryce Huff rushing from the outside. If they have to go ahead and, put an extra running back or tight end to his side, oh boy, that could open up some things in the middle. So yeah, Bryce Huff is as advertised. He looks really good. The handwork, the technique's even better than it was with the Jets. So he's getting better. I think he's going to be really good for the 49ers.
So Matt Mayoko is reporting that the 49ers have signed Robbie Chosen, the wide receiver, and have released Marquez Callaway, the wide receiver. So interesting, not surprising to see that. All right. Let me get to these last two questions, and then we'll Jason Massey said that Braden played H-back at OSU. It was actually OU, but yes, he did play a little bit of H-back. Okay, so Notorious GAV, Isaiah Nayer makes the team, right? Also, what's your thoughts on Junior Bergen?
Oh, I don't know if Isaiah Nayer makes the team. I think that he's in the mix. But I think some of it depends on what happens with Demarcus Robinson. If Demarcus Robinson, does get suspended by the league, I think that opens up an extra roster spot for Isaiah Nair. I think the 49ers would love to keep him, but you have to be able to keep the 6 wide receivers only. If you start keeping 7 like you did last year, you have Ronnie Bell out there as was one of the seventh guy. You lose out at other positions. I don't think the 49ers can afford to do that this year. Some of it's going to depend on Nair making big plays in preseason. They'll make it tough. When it comes to Bergen hasn't stood out, and he's still learning. He's still developing. I've seen him make some catches here and there. No big yak yards after. When he takes a hit, he goes flying. I have some concerns. He doesn't look as good as a natural punt returner either as far as catching the ball. Jordan Watkins, Ricky Pearsall, all those guys have looked more comfortable. They have Amir Abdullah doing it now, Andy Isabella. So they've added more guys. I think Bergen has got a long way to go. He's going to have to prove that he's one of those dynamic players, and it's not too much to say. He's got to be like a Dante Hall type guy. He's going to go out there and make something happen when he has his opportunities in preseason. If not, I don't think Bergen makes the team. I think they would rather have an Isaiah Nair who's a dangerous pass catcher because of the speed, the height, and weight than a Bergen who's undersized, whose real element that he adds to your game is special teams. In return, if you're going to get just as good from Jordan Watkins, who's going to be a depth player at wide receiver anyways, you might as well go with Watkins.
Yeah, and that's initially that's kind of what I was saying, is that I didn't think that he would make it because he would make it only as a special teamer. Then we found out that he was handpicked by Brant Boyer, but still, I think that you're right. If he's not bringing more to the table, then they may not have a choice. All right, real quick. Lou, off topic with Dillard being invisible, which is very strange. Because that is weird. Like, we keep hearing about this Dillard guy and he's never around. With him being invisible so far, who's the swing tackle? Burford is not cutting it so far. Now what?
It's right now, it's still Spencer Burford because Austin Pleasance has been struggling as well. All you have to do is watch Austin Pleasance last year, and that's the same thing that's happening this year. And I get it. A lot of people were talking him up during OTAs, and he looked good in OTAs. He's moving around. When you have a big individual who moves pretty niffly, it's great. The problem is he wasn't in pads. He wasn't working against defensive linemen, and that's when you start having some problems when guys can push and pull you, and they start controlling your balance. This has been one of my concerns about Burford at tackle, was also footwork, and him and Pleasance aren't very, clean when it comes to footwork. This is why they need Dillard, and Dillard was seen yesterday working on a side field. He's getting to the point where he's getting close to coming back. He'll be back in the next week or so. Maybe he could come back in time for the practices. That would be interesting. But Dillard I don't know if he's a clean prospect either. People that had him in Tennessee, the fans there, they've told me they disliked Andre Dillard. He was inconsistent. Last year with Green Bay, it was shaky. So we'll see. I think Dillard's probably going to be thrusted in that mix, him and Spencer Burford competing. But yeah, I think swing tackle is a little bit of a concern for the 49ers right now. Somebody's got to step up and take that role, and I'm not sure who it's going to be. Hopefully it gets answered. Maybe they figure it out and everything's okay, but they are missing Jalen Moore right now. Yeah,
for sure. Thanks, everybody. That's all that we have. We went a little bit longer than I wanted to because I've got some writing stuff that I have to do for 49ers Web Zone. But thanks so much for listening or watching, whatever you're doing. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to both shows. That means a lot to us, really helps us out. So everybody have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you next week.